For just a little more money, you can get the Redmi Note 13 4G. That was a comment left on my Redmi 13 review. And I totally agree. You should definitely get the Note 13 over the Redmi 13. Believe me, it's the better phone. First off, the Note 13 has superior build quality. It has Gorilla Glass 3 protection for the screen, while the Redmi 13 has just Gorilla Glass protection. The Note 13 also has an IP54 rating, while the Redmi 13 has an IP53 rating. The Note 13 has stereo speakers, the Redmi 13 has just one speaker. We also have a more advanced on-the-display fingerprint reader on the Note 13, while we have the regular side-mounted fingerprint reader on the Redmi 13. But I should also point out that the Redmi 13 has a glass rear, while the Note 13 has a plastic back. So yeah, it kind of looks like an advantage for the Redmi 13, but then again, glass is more fragile than plastic, so is it really an advantage? What about the displays? Well, they both have the same resolution, but the Note 13 has a better display type, a higher refresh rate, smaller bezels, and even a brighter screen. So on paper, it definitely has the better specs, but it's not just on paper, in the real world too. Like, you would be able to see how much better it is in real life too. From when you're watching movies to when you're gaming or even when you're scrolling. You would definitely notice that the Note 13 has a superior display. The Note 13 also has better performance than the Redmi 13. The Note 13 uses the Snapdragon 685 while the Redmi 13 uses the Helio G91. When I ran benchmarks on both, the Note 13 came out on top, but the gap wasn't as wide as I thought it would be. The reason I'm saying this is because I had a pretty terrible experience with the Redmi 13. The phone felt really slow, it stuttered a lot, and overall it just kinda sucked. But when I used the Note 13, I didn't have any of those issues. I think the reason for this could be the fastest storage type used on the Note 13. So even though on paper, the difference isn't that wide, when you actually use these phones, you would easily tell that the Note 13 is just faster. Now, of course, these are still budget phones, so you can't expect top performance. They would still occasionally stutter, they would still play games at medium graphics settings. They're also not going to be the best at multitasking or even opening apps instantly. But if you had to choose between these two phones, the Note 13 is the one to go with. For cameras, they both have a 108 megapixel main camera. They also both have a 2 megapixel macro lens. But then we have an additional 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera on the Note 13. For the selfie camera, the Note 13 has a 16 megapixel camera, while the Redmi 13 has a 13 megapixel camera. We're going to come to the selfie camera in a bit, but starting with the main camera, they're actually comparable. Most pictures are similar. Some I prefer the Note 13, and in some other ones, I prefer the Redmi 13. So yeah, comparable. But I'll give an edge to the Note 13 because of its ultra-wide camera. Although it's just 8 megapixels and isn't the most detailed, it definitely would come in handy for certain types of shots. And then for the selfie camera, the Note 13 has the better camera on paper, but when I compare them, I actually preferred the Redmi 13. For me, it just did better with color and also was more consistent. Lastly, I compared video quality. They both shoot at 1080p 30 FPS, but honestly, I wasn't impressed with the video quality of both phones. The Note 13 looked a bit soft, while the Redmi 13 looked over-sharpened. They just didn't impress me. If I had to pick though, I'll probably go with the Note 13 because it does seem to have a bit of stabilization. But do let me know what you think down in the comments. For battery, the Redmi 13 has the slightly bigger battery, 5030 mAh. But I think because of the more efficient processor of the Note 13 and its AMOLED display, it actually ends up having the better battery life. I watched a YouTube video for an hour and a half on both phones. The Redmi 13 lost 9% of its battery, while the Note 13 lost 8% of its battery. So the Note 13 is better, but slightly better. But yeah, in all, they have pretty good battery life and should last a day easily with medium use. For charging, both phones support up to 33 watts of wired charging, so it should take a little over an hour to fully charge these phones. no real difference there. And that's kind of the same thing with software. They're both running on HyperOS on top of Android 14. I plan on making a long-term review of the Note 13, so in that video, I should talk a bit more about HyperOS and all its new features. Okay, so what's the verdict? Like I said in the intro, everyone should buy the Note 13 over the Redmi 13, and I think I have shown you why. In fact, the only reason to buy the Redmi 13 is if you don't really care about performance, if you just want a phone to take calls on, maybe take a couple pictures, but then most importantly, you want to save money. But really, I would encourage you to spend a little more and get the Note 13. I've dropped reviews on both phones, so if you want more information, you can definitely go watch those videos. But I hope that this video has helped you decide which phone to go with. But that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you when you see me.